Good night, viewers, and welcome to this another program of Advancing the Cause. This program comes to you every Wednesday night from 18:30 hours to 20 hours. The official host of this program is the Honorable Coretta McDonald, AA, MP, and General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. Comrade McDonald is unavoidably absent tonight because of matters pertaining to the Union and national interests. And therefore, I want to tender an apology for her absence from this program tonight. My name is Dennis Jaikran, and I'm going to be the host for this program tonight. Normally, we say to you from the very beginning of this program, how is it we derive our topics? And so tonight, our topic is the truth be told. And between programs, we receive very many phone calls, meaning this program. We make a lot of visits. People communicate with us, and we are able to fashion our program to suit the cause. And therefore, the topic tonight, as I said early on, would be the truth be told. The order of the presentation would be education matters. And under education matters, we are going to touch on the Because We Care cash grant, defects of schools, National Athletics Championships, National STEAM Fair, vacancy lists, and challenges in the education system. We are going to look at some GTU matters, which is issue number 2. Then we are going to look at the failure of enforcement agencies, something we have been talking about on this program for at least 9 months. We are going to deal with scholarships, payments of the $100,000 cash grant. We are going to deal with weeding, cleaning, and maintenance of trenches and canals as done by NDCs, RDCs, NDIA, and water users associations across this country, and the Henrietta Pump Station. But before we get into our discourse, I want to ask the operator to kindly bring up a very important piece of information that we need to share. So in the meanwhile, the operators are getting set with that particular item for us. We can continue. So we want to talk about education matters. You see, education in Guyana is in serious crisis, is in trouble. It is in chaos. It is mismanaged. The standards are falling in the education system. And therefore, we can only do a bit of it on this program, but with a level of meaning so that people can better understand how is it the education system in this country is falling apart. And so we want to speak to the issue of the Because We Care grant. Let this program first of all establish, and so that all our parents, our teachers, and our learners who are the beneficiaries of this Because We Care grant, to allow them to understand, to know, and to be aware of that every single cent that is being paid to our learners, those sums of money are money belonging to the state. May I repeat? Money belonging to the state, meaning that all sums of money as paid out by this government are taxpayers' money and not the PPP money as they would want us to believe. And so when they go to share out or distribute, so to speak, these cash grants to our learners, and when they meet the parents, the teachers, and the wider community, they give the distinct impression that it is money that is provided by the PPP. That is far from the truth. It is not the reality. The reality is that every cent that is being paid, those sums of monies are taxpayers' money, state money. So let us rid them of that misconception, and so that our parents, our learners, our teachers are going to be in a better position to understand how is it. Now, the second point, it was brought to the attention of this program, and it is alleged that in very many cases that the list of learners provided are very much inflated in some schools. And in some regions, when that work was done to make that adjustment, it is further alleged that they were instructed not to make such adjustment with these inflated lists, allegations, so to speak. And it is further alleged that in particular regions, that this was a crime last time when at a particular nursery school, and I understand that nursery school would have inflated its list. When the last time this grant was paid, that persons who are not of nursery school age, not even play school age, would have been granted the grant, and the parent of that child would have been proud with the head teacher to waive that grant. This is an infraction. It is criminal, so to speak. And here I want to call out the Office of the Auditor General to ensure that all these infractions that are there be corrected. We are further told on this program, allegations again, that very many lists are still to be verified, but in some cases, because they are so inflated and because it is for reasons best known to those who would have inflated and those who caused that inflation, there cannot be any change. And as I said earlier on, mind you, these are all allegations, but it is the duty of us on this program to ensure that we bring what is known to the program so that our viewers would be in a better position to understand that there might be very many infractions as it relates to this because we care grant. Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General. It is time for you, meaning not the person, but the Office of the Auditor General. Just like how the office was so busy during the period while the coalition was in government, very proactive, so to speak. It might be useful for the Office of the Auditor General to be that proactive or even more because of the circumstances of the government spending state money, taxpayers' money at their whims and fancies without any kind of concrete plan and accountability and auditing. And so we want to make those points. And I don't know if at this stage our operators are ready. If they are not, we want to just say that defects. We want to move to the next point, which is defects of schools. You know, very many of our schools, don't worry, viewers, don't be carried away. Parents who are watching this program, our teachers who are watching this program, and all the other viewers of this program, don't be carried away by the propaganda of this government, especially the Ministry of Education, the Minister of Education boasting about the billions of dollars that is spent on education system, the education system. Maybe it is by talk, but it is not by reality. And so the physical infrastructure of our learning facilities in this country, education, learning facilities, are in a deplorable state. And let me say to the viewers that from the feedback this program would have had, even as they boast about those structures that were completed, there are many defects, electrical defects, guttering, leaking roofs, poor stairways, floors, right? All of these things there that are happening. So can you imagine those schools that are not newly constructed? And by the way, there are some schools that billions of dollars would have been spent last year on maintenance, and this year the same sum of money is being spent, or even more, a greater sum, so to speak, to do the same maintenance work. Where is the Office of the Auditor General? Are the officers of the Office of the Auditor, and this is not bashing the Auditor General's office, this is bringing to their attention what is it they are supposed to see and to report, because they are the guardians of the state money, taxpayers' money, and they have a duty on the Constitution to provide the people of this country with such services that are relevant to the Audit Act. And therefore, this program is saying to our viewers that our schools are very many schools that started 3-4 years ago are still to be completed. But you don't hear these things. You hear about sod turning of the sod. And that is the end of the project, for the projects, so to speak. And our learners continue to suffer. Our teachers continue to work under harsh conditions as it relates to the delivery of the curriculum. And therefore, we want to point out, because I'm going to call the name of the school, because this information came from the parents. And don't rush to the teachers of the school. It came from the parents and concerned citizens of that particular area. And let me tell you the name of the school now, as it relates to what we are talking about. The name of the school is Friendship Secondary. Now let me repeat. This program, the information that is fed to this program would have been fed to this program by parents and concerned citizens of the community, and not by the head teacher or the teachers of that school, lest the Ministry of Education, the Department of Education would want to rush into that school and want to lay blame at the feet of the head teacher and teachers. That is not so. So let me give you the facts, and they can go tomorrow if they want to, the Ministry of Education, and to confirm what this program is saying. It is heavy, overgrown bushes in that school compound. Heavy, overgrown bushes. This is one school we are identifying, but there are more schools, but we are pointing out one so that they can do their fact checking. Infestation of rats, pigeons, bats, mosquitoes. How do you expect our teachers to perform? How do you expect our learners to receive? And let me go back and say, infest bats, rats, mosquitoes. This is an indictment. Serious indictment. Clogged drains in internal and external. Clogged drains. No water flowing from taps in the toilets. Teachers have to dip, let me use the word in inverted commas, dip water from a container in the toilet to flush these toilets. Can you imagine this day and age that our teachers, for them to flush the toilets at Friendship Secondary School, would have to use a bucket to dip the water from a container that is in that toilet and to flush it? That is the condition our teachers are working under. And when this minister goes about the place boasting of the billions of dollars being spent, but mind you, the CEO and all the other officers, all the DCUs, all the ACUs, and maybe all the regional education officer. Don't forget, apart from the superintendent of exams, the rest there, NSORT is a waste of time. Tremendous waste of time. The CEO and all those officers under his charge, they are a waste of time. They are helping to destroy the education system. And that is why what I am saying, this program is saying here, do a fact check tomorrow and see what is happening there. And so The parents have used this storm to us on this program, that many of these toilets have outlived their usefulness. And so they are the next point, which is garbage heap at the back of the school, piling up as high as the school. This is the condition under which only one school, and as soon as this program is finished, or between this program and the next program, we would be able to list on this program the next time the number of schools, parents, and teachers, head teachers, concerned citizens that would call to say to us, the conditions here are no different from other schools. We are going to list those schools on the next program because we know we are going to get that information from our viewers, from our parents, from concerned citizens. Some of the business people also in that community said they are disgusted when they go to that school to see the condition. And this is only one community speaking, but other communities are still to speak because conditions are very grave, very sad, very depressed, and our learners are not in a state of mind to receive. Our teachers are not in a state of mind to deliver at maximum. But we have to give our teachers and our learners and our parents the credit that is due to them. You see, we talk about education and we talk here about the poor condition of these schools and what have you. But let me make mention of one thing. You see, the schools welfare system in this country, and maybe not all the regions, one of the main regions would be region 2, would have failed our learners at the maximum. Why not call in the name of the secondary school? Today, it was brought to the attention of this program that a student from a particular secondary school who is writing CSEC, and I'm going to come back. Don't blame the student, don't blame the parents. I'm going to come to speak to the issue of the failed schools welfare system. Would have been found somewhere along some rice plot. Maybe in a state of not being able to help himself. For whatever reason or the other. But you cannot blame our teachers in the system for that. It is the failure of the school's welfare system that is allowing the decline in whatever standards our learners ought to look at and our teachers. And because they don't know better, meaning the school's welfare officers, some of them, and because some of them are so busy in engaging themselves in contracts, civil works, supply of goods and services, supplies of refreshment and meals, catering in all aspects. That is why they cannot be able to supervise and manage the school's welfare system. And it is resulting in our learners and our teachers not receiving the kind of guidance. But on the other hand, because of the quality of some of these persons, the school's welfare officer, what guidance can they give? to our teachers? None whatsoever. And it is why some head teachers complain that when these people go into the school, these schools welfare officer, they cannot even understand how is it to balance a simple register, weekly balance I'm talking about. So if they can't understand how is it to do weekly balance, how is it are they going to say to people how you do your termly balance or your annual balance? And how is it you can use that information of attendance and punctuality, non-attendance, so to speak, and punctuality, poor punctuality? How is it you use that information and to be able to garner that information? Go to your head teachers meeting, go to your PTs and discuss. They do not have the ability to do that. And that is why they are failing the education system. But more than that, the regional education officers in some of these regions are no different because, in December, some of them were appointed by pitchfork, meaning that we're pitchfork into positions without any public advertisement, without any interview, without any short listing, but they were appointed because they are friends, families, and favorites. All of them that were appointed in December of the PPP. And so they are failures of the education system. They continue to fail the system. The school's welfare officers, some of them, some of these redos are a waste of time, especially those that were appointed in December because of a smile somewhere. But mind you, before one of them would have been appointed, I understand she went to some building in Rob Street some time ago. And because of the tears that she shed, that Rob Street was flooded out. But she does the bidding for the PPP. And that is why that officer would have been appointed. So there is this system that is failing our learners at this stage. And so I want to move now to the National Athletics Championships. We didn't get a chance to really discuss that from the time it was held to now. But that was let us coin our words here or our phrases. That was a tremendous field event and activity as hosted by the Ministry of Education and selected persons, teachers, who they put under pressure, so to speak, to go and perform official duties. And the teachers would have complained bitterly that because they were forced to go there and because they did not have a clear understanding of what their roles and duties and responsibilities were, they could not have functioned effectively. But they were bombarded and for the poor performance. And so that activity, for the first time, was a tremendous failure. You do not go into an event like that, of that nature and magnitude, and want not to involve those who have the experience. Even at the launch at NSOR of these championships, I heard a DCO, Deputy Chief Education Officer, speaking there, not a speck of motivation to those who are there, because the gentleman doesn't know anything about athletics championships. And a person who would have been there under questionable circumstances because of at that time was in another stalemate and could not have represented an organization, was there in and out, but the cameras were there on him, and he was so ashamed to know that he was not supposed to be there, but was there. All these things led to the failure of these national championships that were held this year, early this year. That is not all. Some regions, there are allegations that some regions, I call two names allegations, Region 2 and Region 10, that the sums of money that would have been not appropriated but budgeted for the activity, and based on the participants and teachers not getting adequate meals, snacks, and other supplies, they are complaining bitterly, or they would have complained bitterly, and they still continue to complain bitterly because it is still paining them. And the teachers or officials who officiated are complaining bitterly because they are still to be paid. These are all allegations, and they are still to be paid. So Auditor General, Office of the Auditor General, it might be a good thing if you can allow for these regions, as these allegations are made, to be audited as it relates to these national athletics championship. And so, again, I want to say that this was a tremendous, coin in our own words, tremendous failure in the history of staging these national athletics championship. But as I said earlier, you do not exclude your people with the necessary skills and ability to manage such an event. Once you would have done that, you would have put yourself to fail. And fail they did, the Ministry of Education. Let us look at recently, and this was supposed to be done early on, since last year, but I want us to turn very quickly to deal with the submission of senior vacancy list. And this document is dated the 19th of April, and in any normal circumstances, by April at this particular time, in any year, once the system goes well, these vacancy lists ought to be out. But a memo from the Chief Education Officer dated the 9th of April 2025 sought to obtain from the different departments of education the senior vacancy list so that these vacancies can be forwarded to the Ministry of Education and further to the Teaching Service Commission for the necessary. Let me say this. This memo is not different from the ones that would have been written by the Chief Education Officer, meaning starting a memo and in a letter form. Shame, right? You notice the date? It is 9th of April 2025. By then, vacancies ought to have been, persons ought to have applied. Normally, it's not in November and December, right? But April, this is a system, a failed education system. That is it. But this is it. What the Ministry of Education, the Teaching Service Commission, they can't run away from the blame, and the school board secretariat would have done for those schools that are managed by school boards, would have sought to make administrative appointments to these schools, especially senior secondary schools and grade A primary schools, to appoint persons administratively who are friends, families, and favorites of the PPP. So the remaining list of vacancies would now fall into the competitive basis. And even up to that, they still have their friends, families, and favorites being prepared to so apply and be appointed. But mind you, viewers, the persons that were appointed administratively, there are allegations that they are not adequately qualified. They are not the most suitably qualified individuals. They are not the persons with the most experience in administration and management. But it is further alleged because they would have done something to make the Ministry of Education comfortable. And maybe that is why they would have received administrative appointment. They have not gone through the normal course for such an appointment, meaning the vacancies advertised, applications made, interviews, shortlisted interviews held, and the necessary letter of introduction, and then the letter of assumption would go, and then the letter of appointment. That stage, which is the legal and binding stages rather, were not followed because it is alleged that it is payback time and some people can only be paid for their dirty work, so to speak, by having administrative appointments. This is not something that is regular in the education system. And that is why we are in this stage and state. And I said something early on. And while we were speaking, something just popped up there and said that one of the persons or the learners that I'm talking about, that I should make mention also of this massive transfer of students, learners from one level of secondary school to another level. And they have also made mention that that particular secondary school in Region 2 that these students, these learners are moving from would be a secondary school in which this head teacher believes in what you call a one Guyana. But let us remind that head teacher of that particular secondary school that the motto of this country is one people, one nation, one destiny. And if by chance that head teacher is working on the premise by saying and representing one Guyana to so achieve an administrative appointment, the performance now would not match that when it is made or if it is made. So that is what popped up just now, so that I said, let me just bring that out so that thing. And then another thing that popped up just now also is saying that we have to be mindful, but I'm coming to that under the GTU matters. But let me rest that for that under the GTU matters. So the Minister of Education would have been very, 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 very late in the meaning of, in the rather, the senior vacancy list. That is an indictment. That is an indictment. And the chief education officer must be held accountable for this late notification where he sends out a dual purpose document which says starting from a memo, ending as a letter. So I don't know whether it's a memo or a letter he's normally. And all of this, and not him alone, all his other officers, they make the same mistake. Because I'm coming out to the senior education officer responsible for secondary schools and the tremendous failure. And this, whoever is this person, not understanding anything, right? So this program thought it best that we should make mention of the vacancy list. Let us now turn our attention to the STEAM fair, STEAM. Now, you know, there is a memo, just like the chief education officer, poorly managed, and these people have a way of signing their name regards. You know, you start as a memo and you put big memo at the top, and then you are sending an 8th of April memo directing some regions as to what to do for a STEAM fair that would have been held from the 23rd to the 25th of April. Now, a number of things. One, that the venue would have been changed, and when the people went there, I don't know, somebody, well, I don't want, don't describe people. The teachers were busy calling, asking, what is it to do? Education officers that went there were busy asking what to do. And there was a change of venue. And the gentleman that is responsible for organizing the fair, the ACO secondary, could not have given any direction. So, how do you expect when you send a notice about this, your heads of education departments to comply? But I say this to the heads of education departments because you know that you were not suited for that position and you were appointed. Or if you are there because of you would have passed your retirement age and you are there and you do not want to rock the boat, you are not in a good place. Education is not for you. The public service is not for you. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be indisciplined. You don't have to be unscrupulous, but you can be kind enough to ask questions and make recommendations if you are at any time permitted to do that. But I guess how the system is managed now, you can only receive instructions. And whether these instructions are legal, illegal, or in any way or in any form not suited for the delivery of the education system, you do not want to respond. So there are a number of things here that I do not want to burden our viewers with here, but I'm going to pen this sometime so that we are going to be in a state to see what state we are in the education system in this country. So that is it for the STEAM field. I thought it best that I should be able to speak with that so that we can better understand what is happening in the education system. Now, at this stage, I think operators, if you are ready for that first leg of the piece of information we don't want, I would be happy if you can bring it up at this stage as we prepare to go into the aspect of GTU matters in a very short while. Now, as our operators get ready, I'm going to deal with some GTU matters and maybe one matter because it is going to take some time. And I'm going to go through here for you the persons that are, and we are going to put up the photographs, the pictures, and we are going to tell you something about them because the pictures would speak for themselves in terms of the person as is. I'm going to say something about the person. But as we await the operators to do that for us, let me just say to you that for us to be able to have a Guyana Teachers Union that is going to represent adequately our teachers of this country. The Guyana Teachers Union is in the process of its elections for office bearers. And therefore, these are the persons that are best suited, adequately qualified to lead the Guyana Teachers Union for the next 3 years. And so for Demerara, the regional vice president, we have two persons, Randy Mingo and Kenisha Headley. For Barbies, we have Makalia McCalman, Esikibo Takordin Durga, Treasurer Raylene Phillips. Let me see if I get it right, or it's Raylene Cadogan. Raylene Phillips, Deputy General Secretary, Heathcliff Peters, General Secretary, Collis Nicholson, Second Vice President, Carl Vanier, First Vice President, Andy Cameron, and for President of the Guyana Teachers Union, Coretta McDonald, AAMP, who now serves as General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. But later on, as we witness and we see the photographs of these people, as the operators would seek to put them on, we are going to give you a further breakdown as to matters of the Guyana Teachers Union. In the meanwhile, we can come back to the Guyana Teachers Union matters When the operators are ready, then they would signal and then we take it there. But let us deal with this matter of, which is another point, the failure of enforcement agencies in Guyana, paid state employees failing to perform legal and constitutional duties, receiving taxpayers' money, receiving state monies, and they are there sitting upon their sit-upons and not acting in accordance with what the constitution of this country says. And let me name the agencies because they have been receiving at least 1 year now, each month, a letter, and they have not complied. And this is the situation. An illegal and unauthorized mechanical workshop functioning in a residential area, causing noise, dust, and chemical pollution, much to the dissatisfaction of some because there is something that others benefit that would not speak about. And these agencies are the Environmental Protection Agency, the major one, a tremendous failure, very many matters you read every day in the papers, EPA not functioning, not dealing with the matter. NIS, GRA, Guyana Power and Light, with all these illegal, allegedly connections. Ministry of Labor not adhering, meaning those that are there, adhering to the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And so these are the conditions in which people are working. And then you have a Minister of Labor who is more reactive after the fact and make bold statements as though he is a brilliant person. He is not. The Minister of Labor is a failed minister in this government, like very many others. And he compromises allegedly his position at the whims and fancies of those organizations and agencies and businesses, and not adhering to the occupational health and safety regulations. NIS, same thing. These things that are happening here are all fire hazards. In one locale, you have welding being done, maybe illegal GPL connections, allegedly, maybe you don't know. And these things are all illegal, and these agencies, the employees of these agencies sit idly by without addressing these issues. So this program is again bringing it to the attention of the public. Operators, are we ready there? Let me now turn to the aspect of scholarships. You know, it is big in this country of this word scholarship. Well, let me say to our viewers, as I said early on about the cash grant or the Because We Care grant, I'm saying that there is no scholarship in this country that is free. And I hope that this program is beaming to some people who need to know that, some persons who need to know this information. So the first thing I want to, as this program wants to establish, is that there is no free scholarship. Like people would say, it is free, take it. It is not free. It is a cost to taxpayers of this country. It is state money that is paid for these scholarships. So let me get that first point to our viewers. The second thing, many persons who are engaged in these scholarships at the undergraduate and the graduate levels would have once served in the public service, but they were there because of some reason or the other, but should not have been there because they did not have the required number of subjects, or if they would have had the required subjects as specified, meaning mathematics and English at grades 1 to 3, but they were there in the public service and they moved from agency to agency, government agencies, till they were out and they are in. And now it is surprising they still have not had CSEC, mathematics, and English, but are doing now graduate and undergraduate studies. Is this fair to the taxpayers of this country when such persons are selected? But because they are all friends, families, and favorites of the PPP, they are able to get on these programs. So that is the second point I want to make. The third point I want to make, that there is no learner at any secondary school that is in the grade 9 or 10 that is granted any scholarship, state scholarship, not government of Guyana, state scholarship, taxpayer scholarship. You know, some people were bold and some people misuse this whole thing about what you call Thanksgiving. Fooling people, misleading people, praising up people that learners of 9th and 10th grades in secondary schools are granted scholarships. This is an infraction and an indictment on the part of those who believe this, those who peddle this illegal system, an infraction. And it is something that this program is correcting tonight so that we do not continue to make such a grave mistake, misleading our learners at 9th and 10th grades at secondary schools. And so let us now turn. In the meanwhile, again, I'm calling on the operators to bring up those photographs, pictures of the persons that are contesting for the GTU elections. In the meanwhile, we are awaiting that. We can now turn our attention to the infractions allegedly of the payment of this $100,000 cash grant. You know, recently, last year, I think, a $100,000 cash grant would have been paid. This is also taxpayers' money. It is state money that would have been paid to the people in this country that ought to have benefited more than that $100,000. But let me say something, that it was never the intention based on information supplied that persons residing overseas, the understanding of this program and many persons with which this program would have spoken with, that the persons living overseas, if you come to Guyana, you register and you are here in Guyana to collect, then that is okay. That is what they would have said. But there has been no system put in place for persons residing overseas to be registered from overseas, to send authorization from overseas, or to allow somebody in Guyana to write an authorization on behalf of that person residing overseas and to take it to somewhere to collect cash grant, the $100,000. This program, from information, it is alleged that persons sent authorization and were able, allegedly, to uplift the $100,000. This program is not questioning anything. This program is dealing with the principal position. And here is where this program is again calling out the Office of the Auditor General to look into these allegations as made as it relates to the payment of the $100,000 cash grant. And so, further to that, it is alleged that persons who are residing overseas, that they have some level of connection with those who are involved in the distribution of old age pension books. And they present themselves. I want the Minister of Social Services to hear this. The Minister of Social Services to hear this. And the Auditor General, I'm calling out. There are allegations that these people are so advised to come to this country for 1 week at the time of the distribution of these old age pension books and are granted such. If that is the case, why is it that others who are living overseas, I'm not representing, this program is not representing anybody. This program is dealing with the principal position. If that is the case as alleged, then all those who are living overseas, it might be that they might be entitled to the same benefit. And so again, this program is calling out the Minister of Social Services and the Auditor General to look into that. We now move on as we await our operators to deal with the weeding, cleaning, and maintenance of canals and trenches across regions of this country. This is a serious indictment. For the weeding, cleaning, and maintenance of canals and trenches in every region of this country, the responsibility falls in 1 out of 4 agencies: the NDC, the RDC, NDIA, the Water Users Association. Basically, not all the regions of this country, but this is what is happening in these regions. You know, there's something called double dipping, meaning 2. But this is double dipping, meaning 4. So the allegation is that trenches and canals that are clean, maintained manually, when contracts are signed, those contractors receive their monthly payment. upon submission of the necessary claims. In some cases, the NDC, NDIA, the regional administration, and the Water Users Association allegedly assigned that same trench or canal to 4 contractors to do manual cleaning and weeding. So you see what I'm saying here? Double dipping. So one trench, one canal, allegedly, a contract is signed for Canal A to be cleaned by RDC, NDC, Water Users Association, and NDIA, allegedly, manually. But this is a further thing to that. And I want the officers of the Auditor General Office to listen this. I want the Accountant General and the what you call the gentleman, the sub-treasury man. But I'm going to remember the office of that here just now. Long ago, it means secretary to the treasury, right? Finance secretary. Finance secretary. You know, the gentleman is always sleeping, you know. I don't know if he's sleeping or that is how his eyes appear. One out of the two. His eyes either appear like that or he's sleeping. But let him wake up and listen to this program. The Accountant General, the Finance Secretary, and the Office of the Auditor General. There is need for an investigation into this here. This program is calling out for that. And in some regions, persons are forced to not continue weeding, cleaning, and maintenance of trenches and canals because they are given the royal runaround as it relates, and these are particular persons, the royal runaround for them to be able to conclude. While they would have done that, they are always nitpicking in the work done. And even up to yesterday, persons had to give up what they were doing because of the pressure that was meted out to them. The public, the viewers must know these things. There are further allegations that in some regions that many trenches and canals, I know there are allegations in region 2. Employees of the regional administration, their spouses and their children, they all have in the names of other persons allegedly trenches and canals to be cleaned and maintained. This is another area in which the Office of the Auditor General should take note of because it is an infraction, serious infraction on the regional system. But you know, we have a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Local Government and Regional Development. It is amazing to look at this PS while he sits at Public Accounts Committee meeting. That meeting is normally held in the chambers of the National Assembly or the Parliament. And while you sit there and you look at this PS, you would think that he's sitting in some other part of this country. Because he's far remote from what is happening there. Just like how he's far remote from every single thing that is happening in regions across this country. And these are the people you have managing the regional system of this country. This is Again, I'm using this phrase. This is an indictment of this entire system. Let us look at something here. We have been repeating this thing over and over because it was brought to the attention of this program that allegations, rather, that the generator pump station was sold, allegedly, to a private individual for commercial purposes and for rearing of poultry at the level of the dissatisfaction and discomfort of persons residing in and around that area. You know, excuse me. This program always talks about this gentleman you call Sheikh Baksh, the worst education minister this country would have ever seen. He is now Chief Executive Officer of the Guyana Water Inc. And right now in Region 1, the water is so discolored that Guyana is sending to the people of that region, in Region 9, in Region 1, in Region 7. And Sheikh Baksh is presiding again as he presided over an education system that he failed. He is presiding over Guyana and he's failing there again. And if the inventory of GWI is not in order, then they do not know their facilities and the properties that are under the control. And it might be, they might not know that such property would have been handed to a private individual. And they can find out because I'm pointing to what this program was told, that there is business, commercial, poultry rearing. I put all those in one to emphasize that these things are happening at the generator, the compound of the generator pump station. If it is no longer the property of GWI, then let GWI comes out tomorrow and issue a bold statement to say that they would have relinquished this property and the property does not belong to GWI. It is not on their inventory. It is not on their register of assets. And then people would be much more comfortable knowing it is not on the assets register. But you see why Guyana is failing, because he failed an entire education system. And he's failing Guyana. He's going to call it Guyana or GWI. Viewers, our program tonight, the topic is the truth be told. And we can only bring you what we are told, the truth. And the feedback we get. In some cases, we say to you it is alleged because we do not want to get in conflict with the law because they are easy to come for you. You do or you don't do. So I think because we have missed our operators in relation to the pictures for the persons that are going for the president, the office bearers, I just want to read from very quickly here, not in any order, but in closing this program, I want to present to you the best candidates that our teachers must vote for, because I understand your ballot papers are out and you are in the process of receiving. Some schools, some regions would have already, some are still to. So when you get that and you see these names, ensure you do that. So I'm going to deal with 1, 2, 3 at the last. So let us start here. I have it not in this thing, but for the position of the treasurer of the Guyana Teachers Union, this program is recommending Raylene Phillips for treasurer of the Guyana Teachers Union. And this poster we see here, yes, it is there. Operators, thanks very much. And so it says here, accountability, enthusiasm, loyalty, empowerment, nobleness, empathy. Teachers, we are looking for Raylene Phillips to be the next treasurer of the Guyana Teachers Union. And therefore, this program is asking of you to vote Raylene Phillips as the next treasurer of the Guyana Teachers Union, so that our sums of money can be properly accounted for. So operator, as you put, I'll read from my book. So we can go to the next slide here. So we take here to re-elect Heathcliff Peters for the Deputy General Secretary. Heathcliff Peters, Deputy General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. Here is what it says. It is the U and the I in union that makes us strong. And it says here, dedication, experience, integrity, trust, and vision. Viewers, I present, teachers, I present to you your next Deputy General Secretary to be re-elected, Heathcliff Peters, at the next elections of the Guyana Teachers Union. So we can now go to the next one. So I call here General Secretary Collis Nicholson for General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union. Collis Nicholson, a proven worker with passion and humility, an experienced leader with regional and international exposure and expertise, dynamic and strategic in trade unionism, transparent, responsive to the issues of members. Teachers, I now present for you to unanimously elect as our next General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, Collis Nicholson, who is going to present us with that leadership. We now move to our second Vice President, Carl Vanier. Carl Vanier for second Vice President. As second Vice President, this is what he's telling us, and we must believe what he's telling us. Ensure timely award of bursaries for children of members. Very good. ensure more professional development opportunities for all our teachers. A leader should be selected based on, and this is how he's presenting himself, right? All the different kinds of characteristics that he thinks would bring him. And I now present to our teachers to re-elect as our next second vice president of the Guyana Teachers Union, Carl Vanier. I now present him for your elections. Then we move now to our first vice president, Andy Cameron. At the next GTU elections, this program is recommending that all our teachers support Andy Cameron for the position as first vice president of Guyana Teachers Union. A voice for every teacher, a vision for the future, a leader who listens. Experienced educator with 26 years in the classroom, passionate advocate for fair play and better working conditions, committed to transparency, equity, and strong union leadership, proven track record in negotiations and members' support. Once again, this program presents to you for full support. Teachers vote for Andy Cameron as the first vice president of the Guyana Teachers Union. We now move to the regional vice chairpersons. And the first one we take here is Kenisha Headley, Regional Vice President, Demerara. And so, vote for me. This is what she's saying. Vote for me. Voting for me will be a vote for the upkeep of professionalism and integrity, greater teacher interfacing. And so at this stage, I present for us teachers to vote for the candidate Kenisha Headley as our next vice president for Demerara. We now move to Regional Vice President Essequibo Takordin Durga. So teachers, I present to you again Takordin Durga for the next Regional Vice President Essequibo. He says here, vote for integrity, solidarity, and proven representation. And so again, I want to present to you Takordin Durga as the next Regional Vice President. Essequibo Vice President Mahalia McCalman. And Ms. Mahalia is saying to us, vote for greater representation, integrity, vision, innovation, dedication. So teachers, I present to you, and these are the teachers in Berbice. The one before for Essequibo is Essequibo teachers, that is Takordin Durga. And then for Kenisha Headley, for the teachers in Demerara. So teachers in Berbice, for your regional vice president, vote for Mahalia McCalman as your next regional vice president. And so, ladies and gentlemen, viewers it is time for us to present to you the president-elect and in waiting without any competition, the Honorable Coretta McDonald, AAMP, who would have been, without any competition, been elected as president of the Guyana Teachers Union, president in waiting, so to speak. Operators, can we bring up the president or president of the Guyana Teachers Union? So viewers, in the meanwhile, we are waiting there. I want to encourage all our teachers that would receive your ballot papers that you should vote as per names we would have announced. And for purposes best known to us, I shall repeat the names very quickly so that we can be able to remind ourselves who are the persons to vote for. Well, you know the president would have already been elected. No competition. That is Miss the Honorable Coretta McDonald, AAMP. She's serving as General Secretary, and another few days from now, President. Regional Vice President, Eskimo, Takurdin Durga. Teachers of Eskimo, Takurdin Durga. As don't make no mistake. But teachers in Barbies, your next Regional Vice President, Mahalia McCalman, make no mistake. Teachers in Demerara, Kenisha Headley, make no mistake. Treasurer, Raylene Phillips, make no mistake. Deputy General Secretary, Heathcliff Peters, to be re-elected, make no mistake. General Secretary, Collis Nicholson, make no mistake. Second Vice President, Carl Vanier, make no mistake. First Vice President, Andy Cameron, make no mistake. And President-elect, Honorable Coretta McDonald, AAMP. Viewers, I think we had a good program, and we would continue as long as these elections are not concluded to still present to you so that our teachers would better understand that the emphasis to us is to allow them to be able to make the best choice and to elect the best persons to so lead the Guyana Teachers Union for the next 3 years. Viewers, I want to thank you very much. This program, we do appreciate your presence. We do appreciate your submissions. And I want to explain submissions, what it means. Submission would mean that your comments and your information so that we can to all of us as viewers, listeners, and participants. Thank you very much. Have a good night, and may God bless you.